This is the important video. This is the recent game I was playing. And let's talk about it and let's watch the video about it. I think Unreal Engine 5 is ruining gaming. Absolutely, 100%.
Oh, hello everybody. How's it going? It's a late night tonight and I got a spooky story to be telling you guys. You know, ladies and gentlemen, one of the spookiest things on the internet are like video game like creepypastas and everything. And I got one that just happened to me tonight, you know? I'm somebody that loves playing video games. And, when I used to play video games like 10, maybe 15.
Wait, let me show you the first benchmark. Mafia, the world country. 3090. That's a 5090. Where is the 3090? Okay, this is a decent 3090, right? Then maybe let me see.
Be careful.
Like if you got at 3090, no, he's inside the cube. You can get a smooth frame rate of 50. 1080p in a 3090. If you run it natively. Max settings, yes. But look at the frame rate. 45, 46, 54. It's just pathetic. And he's upscaling it too. This is hilarious. Look at this. DLSS quality. Okay. You need to use DLSS on a 3090. And it dips to 30 FPS. Look at this. This game?
15 years ago.
Shit.
Generally speaking on the PC, if it was strong enough, I could get, a full 60 frames. I could get the game looking sharp.
This game looks significantly better than Mafia.
Make the game look nicer than it was supposed to. But ladies and
that's a
gentlemen,
10-year-old
15
game.
years later, 2025, every modern AAA game that I buy runs like hot garbage. Games run and stutter like no tomorrow. Games look blurrier than anything. It's almost like I have cataracts. Ladies and gentlemen, today's video is all about Unreal Engine 5. And I firmly think Unreal Engine 5...
God. This game is fucking cumulative gaming.
One of the worst
Fuck this engine. The only game that runs remotely well in Unreal Engine is Fortnite.
To ever grace the
Nothing
PC
else
platform.
runs like that.
Now, to give you some history over here, the reason why I'm making this video is about this game called Mafia: The Old Country. Now, to no disrespect, the game is okay. Like, it took me around 9.5 hours
that game
to
is
beat this game.
garbage.
$50. It's a pretty linear affair. Now, the thing about this game is it runs on Unreal Engine 5. And because it runs on Unreal Engine 5...
Look at the color pattern. This is what I mean. Do you... Look how shit this game looks. There is zero color differentiation. Everything looks brown as hell. What is this? What do I need a fucking 4090 to see dirt?
This game stutters almost...
Like, the game doesn't really look good either. Like, if you've seen back at Batman Arkham, that game came like 10 years ago, right? Every good looking game came 10 years ago at this point. And they look significantly better. Look at his face. What happened to his face? Look at this.
Almost every single where you go. If you go into a city, expect the frame rate to drop all the way down to 30, maybe 40 frames per second.
What? Yeah. When I played this, I thought my 3080 got weaker. It just finishes you to thinking your PC got outdated when the game runs like hot garbage.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I run a 4090. I run a pretty decent CPU, and I have a shit pot full of fast RAM. Now, for this video, when I was running the game, just because I wanted to test it, I ran this underneath Linux, as is my regular operating system, but I also ran it underneath Windows, and I really didn't see any massive performance difference, okay? The game ran like hot shit. Now, this is one of my big problems, and one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video. This game does not look impressive, okay? Now, I see a lot of controversy with this game. Apparently, people were mad that you couldn't swim in this game. And look, it's a game about mafia, okay?
Yes.
Like, the last thing I expect out of mafiosos is swimming. Usually, everyone has cement shoes on, and they're drowning at the bottom of the fucking ocean. No, really, the controversy should be the game runs like hot fucking ass. That's the issue.
It
For the most
too.
part, okay, you know, I give the same money to these gaming companies. All right, I expect at least a functional piece of software. Now, I beat this game, and it wasn't an enjoyable experience. I mean, I'm talking like as soon as you go into the cities, you're touching 30, maybe going below on it, right? And I think on a 4090, I know
You said this engine supposed to be optimizing this, but it's doing the complete opposite. You know? They say the one thing and then swap the engine, and then when the game comes out in that engine, it runs like this, dude. This guy is pulling a 43 FPS on a 4090. Are you serious?
brand new 5090. It's not the most brand spanking card out there, but it should at least run a little better, right? It should run better.
I guess.
So one of the things that I looked at was obviously the performance benchmark. So I went to Tech Power Up. They made a whole giant list of GPUs and how the performance was running. Now, if you look at this game list of
Wait. 9070, look at that. 9070 on 1440p. 54 FPS. And 1080p, it gives you 70.
GPUs and how the performance was running. Now, if you look at this game really quickly with these comparison screenshots, this is what the game looks like on Epic. So if you look at the house really quickly over here on Epic, the shadows are filled in. On low, yeah, it looks a little, you know, shittier. But of course, if you look at the frame rate, 47 FPS, all the way to 68, oof, that's pretty bad. Obviously, I'm gonna try upping the frame rate. Now, even on my system, when I set the game for all the way from epic settings to the lowest settings, I wasn't really looking at a massive performance difference. This is also one of those games where if you're gonna run it, you absolutely need to use any of the upscaling technologies. It also has frame generation, but because the game stutters like no tomorrow, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it feels like ass no matter how you play it. So I decided to look at all of these actual like cards. So the 5090, for instance, is hitting 89 frames at 1920 by 1080p. At the
Bitch, that is the fastest card in the planet. It can't even hit 100. What the fuck are you doing? In the next 2 years, that is not gonna be a faster card than this, and your game runs like this?
Epic settings.
Come on.
Of course, a 4090 hit.
Like nothing in the look at this. Nothing in this current GPU lineup can pull like more than 70 FPS. Look at 9070 XT. That came like 6 months ago, right? 6 or 4 months ago. Anything except the 4090 and the 5090 cannot run this game with fine settings.
80.8 frames per second.
What the fuck? This game doesn't look that good for that demand either. You know? GTA 5 looks better than this.
1080p. I would expect a little bit better in terms of performance.
But I don't give a fuck. Like, if you have a 5090 and if you're running that in 1080p, I don't care what game it uses, it should be at 200 FPS.
But no, Unreal Engine.
Fuck off. 5090 is fast as hell. Like, that is no card that's even remotely close to that thing.
Definitely consumes a lot of fucking resources, even on the most expensive cards on the fucking market. Now, of course, I just...
Now they have the most figured out the planet. The consumer grade the fastest card for a consumer grade is the 5090.
See how the upscaling worked over here. So on a 5090, if you run the game at 4K, you're not even touching that 60 frames per second. You're actually a little bit underneath
kiss goodbye.
Now, of course, when you're running it at 4K with that frame generation, you know, when you're just duplicating those frames, like fucking Jensen goes up on stage telling you about, yeah, you're getting 108 frames per second. That's pretty pog. And of course, when you slap on that DLSS, basically you lower the resolution to make games look a little, you know, to make the game run a little bit better. Yeah, of course you're gonna get them better frames. Now, for me, it doesn't really matter anymore what the frame rate performance really is. I played this game at absolute dog shit performance. So whether I had frame generation on or not, it actually
it's a nightmare to run this game.
Frame generation turned off. So on average, I played the game around 40 frames per second on my PC. This is one of those times where I was like, why was I just too lazy to not go buy this on PlayStation? Why do I, in 2025, purchase a PC game knowing full well I'm about to take a dick in the ass. Now, it's not just me that has this issue. Obviously, there's other people on the Steam
Everybody.
forums who are like, is it me or does this shit stutter bad? And of course, the stuttering isn't always as awful as possible, but even this guy says in populated
Or if you go into a city which you know most of the time, kiss your elbows goodbye. That thing just bangs
it does suck.
hard.
Now, what I love the most about this is when somebody shows a mod that apparently fixes all the performance issues. So I checked out the mod,
Oh,
and
really?
apparently for Unreal Engine 5, they have full tweaks to make this engine run a whole lot better. Basically, if you have to do this, if you have to modify the fucking engine itself to make it more performant, ladies and gentlemen, maybe we've got a problem. Now,
Maybe I should
I'm
have
one of
used
those
that.
people where, like,
Well, it is what
I
it
love
is.
graphics. I think they're cool like every other guy, but I think this is the gaming generation, PS5.
I mean, come on though. Like, if 5090 can't even pull 100 FPS in 1080p, it's just fucking a joke. You know? You have no idea how fast. You know how fast your 3080 is? Like, in that freaking CPU, my god, it's like top
Series
10.
S and X, where I really feel like the graphics aren't really all that impressive.
Yeah, Williams, I
To
don't
be
know.
honest with you, I
But
haven't
I'll
been
go.
impressed with graphics since early PlayStation 4 or Xbox.
Which game I got impressed by the graphics recently I played? Final Fantasy 16. If that game is demanding, I would accept it. Final Fantasy 16, especially the forest area, looked phenomenal. That guy, Clive, I think his name, looks real. I will take that L. But the rest of the game, not so much. And I don't think Final Fantasy 16 is
Now,
even
for
on
all
Unreal
intents and purposes, I know people roasted Assassin's Creed Unity, but I thought that shit looked pretty damn good in terms of how populated environments were. The lighting looked generationally better than the PlayStation 3. You know what? There's another game that's amazing. Games like Arkham Knight, a game that runs on a modified version, a heavily modified version of Unreal Engine 3. And you know what? To this day, when I was playing it again just to record this video, brothers, it looked like a goddamn brilliant title, especially compared to the stuff I've seen now. Now, if I put Batman Arkham Knight next to Mafia the Old Country, Batman straight up throat fucks Mafia the Old Country to No Tomorrow. But you're like, oh, that's an unfair comparison, Muda. The games are totally different. Okay, well then I decided to get Mafia 1 Definitive Edition. This is a remake of a game that released on the PlayStation 4. Now, I fired this game up on my PC.
Even this game looks more detailed and nicer, you know?
And you know what really shocked me? Instead of getting 40 frames per second,
yeah, that gunplay is pretty rock solid too. What the fuck are they doing with this game though?
I was pulling over 100 frames without any fucking
I was confused most of the time when you were playing Mouse Yellow.
And you know what's really funny? This Definitive Edition actually, in my opinion, again, subjective, looked better than Mafia the Old Country.
It looks way better.
How is it
like
that
it's not
Mafia
even close?
The Old Country looks like a painfully average title, yet it consumes more resources than a lot of the better looking games of the past? And I really think all of it just comes down to Unreal Engine 5. This game does not do anything more special than even Mafia 2. At the core of it, it's a linear third-person action-adventure shooter, okay? That's all that it is. You know,
it's like how AMD sort of this bullshit that their processors are good. You know? This Unreal Engine sort of bullshit that their engine is good. But in reality, it's not. Actually, it's so rare to see a good-looking Unreal Engine game. Which is the best-looking Unreal Engine game we got. Ratchet and Clank, I think. But that game looks like a cartoon.
Visuals is fine. Forget it. The visuals don't need to increase. But even the gameplay for this title is stuck.
It's so so rare to see a good-looking Unreal Engine game at all. Everything looks like a slab.
360 levels. I'm not joking. Load up Mafia 2. Play Mafia 2 for a couple hours. Play Mafia the Old Country. I fucking guarantee you.
I gotta play the
Aside
Mafia
from
versions.
some visual changes, the gameplay itself remains mostly the same, okay? So the gameplay isn't evolving. The graphics have stagnated. And not only have the graphics stagnated, But now the
It's
performance on
regressing.
PC is so substantially worse.
It's regressing because of DLSS. They don't even give a flying fuck about optimizing it. I don't think they even optimize the game at all. They just freaking run it. If it has lower FPS, they just implement the frame generation and DLSS and call it a day. Zero optimization whatsoever. If you go from low settings to high settings, do you see the game changing drastically? Not so much. Only the textures slightly change.
Especially when
You know? Like they don't
comes to
optimize the
Unreal
games
Engine
anymore.
5. Now, Unreal Engine 5, when it dropped, I remember one of the first tech demos. I actually played it on my channel. This has to be like probably, I want to say 3, maybe 4 years ago. You remember that Matrix demo where obviously you had Keanu Reeves? I forget the actress's name.
Yeah, that is that game will come out.
It had really realistic facial captures of these people. It also allowed you to explore the city of the Matrix, in full. Like you could play it on PlayStation 5. And I was like, that shit looks pretty awesome. Obviously, the games that have come out since then that are not released by Epic at all are actually kind of dog shit. Now, for the most part, Unreal Engine 5 runs, I would say, pretty okay on console, but when it comes to PC, there are some pretty substantial issues. Now, again, one of the reasons why this tends to happen is something known as pipeline state objects. Now, Unreal Engine's actually kind of talked about this whole stutter problem. Usually when you start up many modern games, usually they have an entire screen that you see one time where it's just building tens of thousands of shaders. So effectively what the game will do is it will invisibly fly through everything.
I think it because of the texture streaming bullshit. Oh, happy birthday month, the birthday. Thank you very much. My birthday is up 19th. Just it's up. What is it? Yeah. The texture streaming they do in order to reduce the loading screen, I think is the most important culprit on it. It hits your CPU, it hits your bandwidth, it hits pretty much every aspect of the computer.
See on your game, and it will just create a shader, right? So that when you eventually encounter these objects in the game, you'll never have to really see them. So the reason why this happens, as of course Unreal Engine explains, is like this. So shader compilation stuttering happens when a render engine discovers it needs to compile a new shader right before it uses for drawing something. So everything stops while waiting for the driver to finish compilation. To understand why this happens, we need to take a closer look at how shaders are translated. So the way that Unreal defines it, pipeline state objects are introduced for DirectX 12, which is a very common API that a lot of you guys use when you're playing your video games, right? Now, the other ones are things like Vulkan, but yeah, DirectX 12 is kind of the main pipeline. So what they said was introducing this shift for real-time rendering to make use of PSOs. The whole real-time rendering industry needs to adjust to a new way of issuing draw commands. So DX12, Vulkan, and Metal, which is typically for Macs, put the responsibility on the application developers to know what a draw call will require well in advance of its dispatch. This makes sense because only the game engine can know these parameters in advance. But application developers haven't needed to have this information ready in advance before, so many games, especially games now, have to be made with all of this in mind. So what they say in the worst case scenario, all right, if a PSO isn't ready, what can we do? Many game engines did the only thing they could without a major rewriting of their code. They blocked the thread just before the draw call was issued and compiled the PSO. So like I said, the first time you come across any object that you haven't seen on your system, it will hitch. And that's what they say, it causes the fucking stutter. Luckily, hitching only happens once per unique PSO. Then it's cached by the driver. So here's the kicker.
So basically, so basically what he's trying to say, Unreal Engine runs like AMD GPU. Regardless of what GPU you use. That's what he's saying. AMD has the same issue. Anything that new happens in the AMD GPU will has this stutter as well.
Your game, right? Which they say.
So it's just that at the end of the day, it's just a shitty code. That's pretty much it.
What if you update your graphic card driver? We got to do that shit all the time. Well, congratulations.
Yep.
You got to go through the hitch fest over and over and over again.
Damn issue. I experienced this firsthand with my 6700 XT. Every time you update your driver in AMD, you do a stutter.
Now, some systems bypass this. Like if you own a Steam Deck, then typically what'll happen is because
It's started like you want it once or twice after you run the game for like a certain amount of time. It's like you have wanted the fucking engine.
Steam Decks are all uniquely the same, it will just download shaders from other users so that new Steam Deck players really don't have to go through stutter struggles every time they play their games, okay? In fact, I've bought games again on Steam, like Cyberpunk 2077, simply because I needed access to that shader cache. Otherwise, the stuttering was gonna drive me up the wall. Now, console gamers don't have to worry about this shit because usually the developers will patch in or bundle the shaders with the actual game. PC, unfortunately, doesn't get that luxury because...
Yeah, I think Nvidia has to kiss the shadow. Even at the start of the game, I think this game didn't kiss shadow in the start of the game. Did it or did it not? I think it did, but it's not that good.
Every single person's computer is so vastly different. The other thing is traversal stutter. So when I was playing Mafia, just driving around, okay?
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare. I think this is because of the pixel streaming bullshit. It's just it. Like, I'd rather take a loading screen than
Hey,
this stutter mess.
It felt disgusting.
Like, look at the scenery. This is the epic settings he's running it on. Does this look any good? What do you guys think? It looks like every other RPG thing I have made. Doesn't look anything similar. Look at the flower color. It looks so washed out. This supposed to be yellow. This supposed to be red. This supposed to be yellow. This guy is wearing blue. She is wearing a teal color. Look how shit this game looks, dude. You guys see it, right? Even with the wall panel, I don't think this game looks anything good.
It really did. The game was stuttering, the game was hitching. Realistically, in most cases, I just usually skipped the driving because honestly, it was the worst experience of
It's like you were colorblind, you know?
And even
it's like you were colorblind the whole game.
This traversal is actually harder to eliminate than even just general stuff. The other thing is all of the extra lumen, nanite, and shadowing that these games tend to issue. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, Unreal Engine 5 has all of these like ray tracing features tossed into it. So lighting like lumen typically can look kind of cool if implemented properly. There's features like nanite, which makes really sharp textures. And again, if implemented properly and optimized properly, it might actually be pretty sweet. And of course, I would say that a lot of the developers that are currently playing around with Unreal Engine 5 really aren't able to optimize some of these features. In fact, I would say for the most part, previous games did a lot of this ray trace stuff better. Now, ray tracing we'll get to in a little bit, but you know, a lot of game developers have basically been trying to do the whole ray tracing thing, you know, in a fake way. So I would say in some cases, games like Mirror's Edge, you know, game that's so old that it can now legally drive. You know, it's not a game that had ray tracing, but this is a time where I would say baked tracing or baked lighting was really a common norm, and lighting looked really good. Now, of course, the limitation for that was there wasn't a day-night cycle, and for a game like that, there really didn't need to be. It looked good. It looked amazing. It looked punchy. It looked unique.
It
but
looks
of course,
serviceable,
there are other
yes.
games like Red Dead Redemption 2 that look absolutely jaw-dropping. One would think that maybe there's some actual ray tracing going on there, but there's not. It's just Rockstar Games doing a really good job faking it with their own engine. And there's a reason why games that use ray tracing appropriately, like it seems Grand Theft Auto 6 is, it can look absolutely amazing. GTA 6 looks, in my opinion, better than even path-traced games running on RTX 4090s or 5090s. And that's just a really good development team putting their efforts and not just relying on the Unreal Slop 5. Now, there's a whole slew of games that drove me insane. For instance, in Unreal Engine 5, there's developers that will literally design their games with upscaling in mind. You would need to have things like DLSS, FSR, XESS, all the...
Like, I don't understand this. Designing a game with upscaling in mind, what does that even mean? Like, can someone explain it to me in the comment section or something? Like, what does that mean? Does that mean they are lazy to even think about optimization? So they just completely omit it and then slap the, what do you get, the generation band-aid on top of it or something? What does that even tell you when they say they have designed the game with upscaling in mind? What?
These upscalers.
What the fuck does that even mean? It's like I am cooking a food that with the, what do you call it? Artificial coloring in mind. Or artificial flavoring in mind.
Which their only job is to lower.
You know, that's what it sounds like. I am cooking a food for you with artificial flavoring in mind. That means you're cooking a shit.
The resolution of the game and basically upscale it so that you can run these at proper frame rates.
What the fuck?
Remember, ray tracing is not brand new. But when ray tracing came out with 20 series cards, one of the first showcase games was Quake 2 RTX. There were also other games that came out that basically did something.
Why does game even need
ray traced shadows, some would have.
Who plays this? I have one question. Who plays this?
Ray traced
this potato.
And for the most part, I would say, aside from one or two games, these would mostly be gimmicky. But we needed upscalers because all of a sudden the gaming industry introduced something that was so
why are you regressing in graphics?
Ray tracing. And because of that, we needed to have all these upscalers because if you decided to run games natively with ray tracing, especially even with the top end cards at the time, you'd be getting like what, 40, 50 frames, less than 60? So you had to run games at lower resolutions, upscale them, just so you could.
I think Nvidia has to have like 10 more generations for people to even remotely even consider ray tracing. Like they need to have like 50 and 190 or something.
Actually,
to have even remotely people consider ray tracing. Like it's just not a, it's a fucking pipe dream at this point.
At a playable fucking frame rate. And in most cases, I would say ray tracing really isn't even worth the hype. So back when Remnant 2 was dropping, I'm sure some of you guys played that game.
Like when I play games like this, I don't even notice them. Like I don't even notice the detail in walls unless I stop specifically to check it. I am here to play a game, not look at it. You know?
The developers came out and said that FSR and DLSS was in mind. You had to play.
That means your fucking game is unoptimized. Fuck you for saying this.
With those options. So initially when these technologies
upscaling
were
in
made,
mind.
They were made with the idea.
That just gives you the tell that they're incompetent EBS, that they don't know how to optimize their game. You are incompetent. It tells you your incompetence in game developing. Just quit your job and go work at the McDonald's. Maybe you can go to flipping burgers.
We were going to be cranking up the.
Why would we as a gamer, your customers have to suffer because of your incompetence? You know, if you are incompetent at coding a game and making it optimized, pack your shit. Get the fuck out.
Settings
Nobody wants you here.
That we needed this to function. We did not need to use DLSS to get basic performance right. This did not need to be a fucking requirement unless you were firing up ray tracing or setting things to an unhealthy degree. Now it seems like every fucking game requires this shit in the industry. Even other Unreal Engine 5 games like Ark Survival Ascended literally was given Digital Foundry's one of the worst optimized experiences they had seen even on consoles, okay? Forget the fucking PC. This game ran like dog shit when it came out. Silent Hill 2 Remake, one of my favorite games of, I would say last year. Absolutely brilliant horror title. One of my favorite games. And you know, it ran like shit on the PC. Again, when I need to use frame...
Really, I didn't have much trouble though, so maybe they best that or not. Silent Hill was decent.
Generation in your game with upscaling, and
Like the rest of them, Jesus Christ. I didn't think performance is an issue in Silent Hill. You were the, what's that game? Callisto Protocol was kind of fine too. And I ran that on a 6700 XT, even a weaker card. It's just that they don't know, they are just incompetence. That's all it comes down to. Incompetence and a shitty optimization. Callisto Protocol ran fine on my PC. Silent Hill ran fine on my PC. Final Fantasy 16 banned on my PC to understand. What's your
Can't
excuse?
even turn it on the ray tracing settings. We've got problems.
Like, let me show you. You has no idea how good the Final Fantasy 16 looked. Like this game, look at this shit. Is it max settings? I mean, I don't think this setting is the best version of it. But some of them look amazing. Alright, thingy. What the hell is he? Don't look at that one. See? I don't know, you have to run it on your computer or something to figure this out. Like, when I saw it, I was impressed. It looked beautiful on my PC. What is he running in the ad? Is it like a console or something? I think he's running on console.
Okay, we've got issues. And this is also one of those games that uses those Unreal Engine features like Lumen, like Nanite, a lot of that software / hardware level ray tracing with just saps performance. And in most cases, I'll personally say it right now, I don't think the lighting in games like just Mafia the Old Country were so jaw-dropping that it was worth losing all of those frames for no reason. I would prefer to just have my games look like the PS4 era of releases if it meant I could have 100 frames per second and above. Not this 40 to 50 pilfering shit that keeps stuttering as I play. That is not fun. That is not an enjoyable experience. That is not an experience I feel comfortable paying full price for. But unfortunately, that's the fucking industry right now. Now, it feels kind of annoying to just blame Unreal Engine 5 for the fucking state of the gaming industry, and I'm not just going to pin the blame there. I'm sure it's not just Epic's fault. I'm sure it's also the fault of developers that literally are not completely down with understanding the intricacies of such an engine. A lot of the times it feels like, you know, they'll slap on all of these ray tracing features and like additions that Unreal Engine 5 provides, but they never really go through with the optimization stage of it. So ultimately, the end product just literally
don't even
exists to destroy computers for no real tangible gain. You know, a few years ago, I really looked at the kind of games that I played, and I think there's like a whole, write-up where like most games that people play nowadays are usually like 8 to 9 years old, and there's a whole skew of that. Apparently a lot of it is just because they play live service stuff like GTA Online or Fortnite, which did release so long ago. But there's just a lot of games that came out years ago that I feel, not just from a gameplay perspective, are better, but just visually hold up so well, and they run so well on anything. You know, a game like Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain, which is a title that I'm sure is definitely polarizing if you're talking about the story, but I don't think any Metal Gear fan will say the gameplay sucks.
Where does
If anything, it's
it
probably the tightest gameplay the series has ever had to offer. It's an open world environment that, allows you to really treat everything as a sandbox. It's just a absolutely brilliant military stealth sandbox experience. Even if you're not fans of the Metal Gear storyline, I'm sure most people will appreciate the gameplay for this. It really felt like a game that evolved past the PS3, entered the PlayStation 4 generation, and took advantage of the hardware, even though that game also released on PS3. But visually speaking, I played it again on PC, and it was razor sharp, no upscaling required, ran it on extra high settings, and never had a fucking stutter to begin with. At all. It's crazy. Playing a game like Arkham Knight ran really well, not a stutter to worry about. Playing a game like Grand Theft Auto 5, even the Enhanced or Legacy, that game holds up so well that I would say it looks better than most of the Unreal Engine 5 slop that drops, or even most modern games. And it still performs like an absolute champ, to the point where you could run it even on a cell phone if you wanted to. Some people have managed to, and it's crazy to see how performant games were years ago as compared to dog shit that comes out nowadays. You know, the reason I'm making this video is I bought a game on PC, And I am just so tired with seeing the lack of performance. 9 months ago, I made a video about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I bought this game because I wanted to play FF7 Rebirth on my PC. And you know what? I did. But it wasn't an enjoyable experience. It stuttered like fucking shit on launch, ran sluggish, and I had to find mods to inject all kinds of optimizations and frame generations just to make this work. And I'm sorry, guys, that just shouldn't be the gaming industry these days. We as gamers should be standing up and saying no to the Unreal Engine 5. Unless, of course, developers really get their shit on board and use this engine appropriately. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of games are giving up their engines because game development is fucking expensive. It takes years to develop a game, millions upon millions of dollars, and, running your own custom engine, it ain't like it was back in the day. So everyone's kind of jumping to Unreal 5. It's crazy to think that, Cyberpunk 2077 is probably one of the best looking games, and CD Projekt Red is now abandoning that engine. They're going to Unreal Engine 5. And I truly do pray and hope to God that when Cyberpunk 2 drops, it's not going to have these issues that we're currently going through. There's even other games like Deus Ex Mankind Divided that runs on the Dawn engine, which I think is an offshoot of like the Glacier engine from like Hitman. Looks absolutely jaw-dropping, looks amazing, looks even better than most Unreal Engine 5 stuff that I've seen. Yet it runs a lot better. So I want to ask again for maybe there's developers in my audience that are watching this video. Maybe there's, people that have more of an understanding of how graphic pipelines work, but there has to be something that needs to be addressed with Unreal Engine 5. Something about this engine just causes so many issues and pain to PC gaming in general. And look, I'm at this point where anytime I go to a Steam store page and I see fucking, Denuvo, which is already demonic as hell anyways, but the moment I see Unreal Engine 5, I now consider Unreal Engine to be worse.
Yeah, it's just irritates, when you see a game with a user Unreal Engine. You just automatically assume that the engine is gonna run like crap.
Some frames. With Unreal, I know that I'm losing all the frames, ladies and gentlemen. But you know what?
Yep.
If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. Thank you for letting a fat Indian guy bitch and moan about how bad performing games have gotten, man. It's crazy.
No.
And it's not just Unreal Engine, obviously. There's other titles like, even Monster Hunter Wilds with like the RE engine. God forbid you want to try running that on your system without any form of generating frames. That needs to be solved.
Jesus Christ.
That needs to be
Yeah, that's what you mean.
Another problem that I kind of see with this is the reliance on ray tracing. And I want to kind of touch upon this a little bit. I feel like NVIDIA is kind of like the worst presence when it comes to PC gaming right now. And unfortunately, they're the only ones that have a lot of the power in the space. I feel like a lot of this ray tracing push that came out of NVIDIA, a lot of this proprietary AI upscaling with DLSS, which unfortunately really is the best upscaling option. It's just a shame it's hardware locked to NVIDIA. And of course, other things that they've implemented in the past, like physics, it makes me wonder in the future what's going to happen to some of these technologies as support starts to dwindle. With things like physics, for anybody that didn't know, NVIDIA basically cut that shit out, like 32-bit physics, a few months ago, which basically meant that a lot of those games that relied on physics, like Batman Arkham City, Mirror's Edge, these were just settings you could toggle on. But NVIDIA definitely showed the shit out of this in their promotional materials. That was basically yoinked away. Now with ray tracing, I really do hope that this is not just a fad that, I mean, it's not going to be a fad. Obviously, every hardware supports ray tracing now. But NVIDIA kind of does it in a superior way to the rest of its competition, and that superiority just keeps bleeding in to current gen games. Game developers keep pushing this ray tracing. They keep pushing these extra graphic settings. And unfortunately, we're really just pushing this stuff to a max, and we're trying to catch up with gains like DLSS and frame generating, when realistically, I think we really should just kind of stop for a minute. We should maybe think, hey, maybe ray tracing shouldn't be the end-all be-all. Maybe we should stick to some of these older systems, these older methods, because they just work good, they work well enough, they work performant, and in most cases, they look about as good, to the average person as the ray tracing side. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, the gaming industry, we are just letting on optimization flow pretty freely. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. If you've got a story to share
that
about
it is.
bad
A good video.
optimizations, write it in the comments section below.
Jesus
This is me,
Christ.
Mira,
This
and, I'm
game.
gonna go play Mafia
This
Definitive
game is the
Edition,
bane.
and
This game
hopefully
is the
not
new
fucking
Christ
cry
is worry, guys.
at how much it puts my
Jesus.
computer down. I am out.
Yeah, Mafia is depressing to run, dude. Cool. It's just god awful.
So the DC